First of all, I don't view myself as a star. I view myself as, and this is a very honest appraisal, just a guy with a camera. I've been in the trenches for 30 years. So if I have an advantage on anybody, it's that I've been doing it longer than most people. And I've been through the mill of this business. There have been times in my career I've been so broke, I couldn't, I was selling lenses, to pay bills, And there have been other times when things have been okay. The one thing I will admit about myself, I've never been afraid of work. Okay, this is hard work. This is very hard work. And that opening picture I showed yesterday of the telescope, that I had to get permits for that, okay, because it was a national park. It's also an endangered species area, okay. It's where the red squirrel likes to fornicate. So I had to find special permissions for that. I had to get special permissions to get a 175-foot boom crane truck up 220 switchbacks to 11,500 feet. And then me and 3 assistants drove 2 panel trucks up that mountain at about 4 or 5 in the morning, unloaded them, lit the scope. I got into the bucket about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was on radio for 2 hours directing the rest of the light, okay, shot the picture, came down off the crane, repacked the trucks, and drove off the mountain again at 3 a.m. the next morning. That's a day. That's a day in the field for the National Geographic. So this is not for the faint of heart. This is really bloody hard work. And if you get into the field thinking otherwise, you might as well stop right now. Do you know the woman hanging from wires in front of the Hollywood sign?
Yeah.
That's Michelle Yeoh. She was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I did a piece with her in the desert that it was for this globalization story I was doing. I flew her out to the desert, and we did some stuff. It didn't really work all that well. It was some very nice pictures, but my editor said, these don't really mean anything. But while we were out in the desert, I gave her the whole diva treatment. I flew her out in a helicopter, so she got the whole star treatment. So I looked at the helicopter pilot and I said, could you take the doors off the helicopter and just give us a ride? So just impromptu, the 2 of us are standing on the skids, and the helicopter went about 150 feet in the air. I'm hanging on to the side of the helicopter photographing her one-handed. And she's fearless. She got her start in Jackie Chan movies. So she threw herself off a 6-story bridge onto a moving truck and broke her back. And, you ask her why she did that, and she'll just look at you and say, because there were 30 other girls behind me who were willing to go and do that to get a start in a Jackie Chan movie. So I approached that. That was the beginning of an idea. I needed an Asian actor or actress who was a stunt person, because I was trying to make the point that at that time, Asian actors and actresses were having a huge impact on Hollywood big budget movies. So I needed to say Hollywood, stunt, Asian, all in one picture. So I came up with the idea of dropping her on wires from a helicopter. And I called my editor and I said, can I try this? He said, Joe, I'm glad you're asking permission. Usually you just call me from the helicopter, So it cost him $18,000. And it was a big risk on his part, because I'm going to take this woman. The 2 of us, we established a temporary helicopter base in the Hollywood Hills. Okay, we had to get permits, insurance, everything else. Stunt helicopter team. The rigger for us was the chief rigger from the movie Titanic, the guy who did all the wires for the people to throw themselves off the ship. Okay, so he did our wires for us, and so the 2 of us are on wires together, and the helicopter lifted up, and the 2 of us walked under it, and we hung there about 20 feet below the skids, and we went flying together. And I was right here. I was like from here to there, okay, with a wide-angle lens, and the Hollywood sign's right there, and I'm just photographing natural light, and it ran as a lead to the story. Okay, could not have come up with that picture otherwise. All right, and that's just a piece of my imagination that I was allowed permission to exercise. And so that was a complete surprise to the magazine. When I brought that picture into the magazine, the editor went, like that. And that's what you want the editor to do, because the editor of the National Geographic has seen lots of photographs, okay, and they're bored, and they're jaded, and they don't give a shit about you, okay? And they don't give a shit about anything except their bonus, okay? And when you're out there spending their money, that might mean that their bonus might be slightly smaller, okay? So time to get real about all of this, all right? So when you bring in a picture that the National Geographic editor looks and goes, holy shit, then you've done your job. Geographic needs, that's a small magazine. So the real estate, the actual pages of the magazine are, prized. You know, people fight over them. You know, space. So for a picture to actually hit that paper, it's got to really perform. So it's got to, every spread that you turn has got to move the reader forward somehow. You know, sometimes we do a good job of it. Sometimes not so good. You know, I've had some pictures in the Geographic. I'd be like, holy shit. You know. I mean, I can't believe they picked that. But I think I also said that yesterday too. There's no right and there's no wrong to this. Editor wants that photograph. I've lost some of my best, my favorite pictures, okay, because the area of the story that it was going to fit into all of a sudden graphically needed a vertical. And that photograph was a horizontal. So my photograph goes away. It just goes away. It gets into the unpublished bin. And a not as strong vertical runs because graphically that's what's required. That's the practical aspects of publishing. If it bothers you, then forget it. Then you become a fine art photographer. And then you have absolute control and you publish a book or you hang pictures on a wall just the way you want them. But if you're going to get into the publications game, your hands are going to get dirty. War photographer named Donald McCullen many years ago. He was a Magnum shooter. And he had the best quote I've ever heard about camera gear. He said, I only use a camera like a toothbrush. It gets the job done. And that's pretty much the way I view it as well. I mean, the cameras are really fancy, They do a lot of things. I thank God they do a lot of things. It's great. It's helped us a lot in terms of being able to work fast and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, am I emotionally attached to the camera? No, I could care less. What was the famous violinist? It might have been Stravinsky. I can't remember. Isaac Stern, maybe. But somebody came up to him. He had his violin in his hand, and someone came up to him after a concert and said, "That violin makes beautiful music." And he held it out like this, and he goes, "It's funny, I don't hear anything." I've used everything on assignment for either journalism or commercial work. I've used everything from a point and shoot, shooting like a Coolpix campaign for Nikon, to the world's only giant Polaroid camera. I mean, everything. And I've shot 8x10, 4x5, 2 1/4, 35 film, 35 dig. To me, again, it's just, what's the job require? What does the job require? Does it require something light and fast? Does it require more of a formal portrait approach? Like where someone, everything is straight lines, everything is very controlled. Or are you hoping that things are spontaneous and that you hope something surprising happens? After 9/11, I used the giant Polaroid. National Geographic actually had assigned me to, just as a small feature, to photograph this camera because it's the only one of its kind in the world. It's a life-size camera. The camera itself is the size of a one-car garage. There's 2 people inside of it when you work it, and the lens weighs about 80 pounds, and it's just stuck into the side of the wall. Okay, so I did the little feature, and I wanted to use the camera, of course. Geographic wouldn't give me the budget to use it.
Yeah.
So I used my own money. Story of my career. So I went back and I asked Jennifer Ringer, who is a principal with the New York City Ballet, beautiful dancer. And I said, Jenny, if you could be patient with this, you'll be the only ballerina ever photographed with this camera. And the story's not about you. It's not about dance. It's about the camera. But if you can put up with that, it'll be cool. So she came down with a variety of outfits, and we knocked out 7 giant Polaroids of her in one day.